To the Dallas Cowboys, something will go wrong.
Prescott back to throw. He's going to heave one down the left side. Des Bryant makes a leaping catch. Is he in? Oh, ball comes out. So take the 24-yard touchdown off the board.
Dallas gives you a reason to laugh at them.
Manning in a shotgun set. He throws the middle of the end zone. Touchdown, Giants. Victor Cruz. And he breaks out the salsa.
What have I continuously said? The Dallas Cowboys, they are not a team that enjoys prosperity.
Prescott, he's back to throw. He sidearms one right and wide open along the right side and caught. But he didn't go out of bounds. Is Terrence Williams. Now the Cowboys hustle on the line. 3 seconds, 2 seconds. They're not going to get the playoff. Ball game over.
This is what they do. This is what they do. Dallas Cowboys are an accident waiting to happen.
And with that, Stephen A. right about those Cowboys yet again. Good morning, everybody. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Welcome into another week of First Take.
What's up, bro? What's going on, man? How you doing? Molly, it's so good to see you. It's so good to see y'all. How are y'all doing? How was your weekend?
Fantastic.
How was your weekend?
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I assure you, it was not better than mine. I promise you that. It was not better than mine. Let's go. Don't we have a show to do?
We do. Our first NFL Sunday in the books. There has never been a week with closer games in NFL history. We have so much to talk about. Let's get into it. So Carson Wentz, he impresses in his first NFL game against a team that passed on him in the draft. How are the Browns feeling about that? That is a bit later, but you know where we're starting. How about them Cowboys? It went down to the wire in Jerry's world. Down 20-19. Dallas took over at their own 20-yard line with 1:04 left on the clock. The drive fell short. 8 plays later, as wideout Terrence Williams caught a pass in Giants territory, but failed to get out of bounds in time. And that was the game, folks.
Did you feel like you had an angle to get out?
Yeah, that's why that was the whole purpose of me cutting it in to go right back to the sideline so we can pick up more yardage, because I was thinking about on the breaking the huddle, it was already 3rd and 13, and so in my mind I was trying to make the first guy miss but then just dive out of bounds, but it just didn't go as planned. I should have just followed the rules and just went out of bounds.
Did you think you had more time?
No, the time wasn't the problem. I was clearly aware of the time. I was just it was just something that I was just thinking of, and it was just like a bang bang moment. And now that I have a chance to just sit back and think on it, I should just went out of bounds.
The Dallas Morning News sums it up with the headline, "Wrong Direction." Stephen A., I'll say it again. How about them Cowboys?
First of all, I appreciate Terrence Williams and how he manned up, but if you make a mistake like that, the spotlight is already on you. What you don't need to do is wear a bright gold type tie that just shines an even bigger light on you. You don't need more attention. You already have it. Now let me get to what I witnessed yesterday. It's very, very interesting. Because he came out there, Dak Prescott, looked pretty good. Looked pretty good. Had a pretty good game. Ultimately ended up, throwing 25 or 45, 227 yards, not an interception, no touchdown, even though he was in the red zone about 5 times. No touchdowns, but he didn't turn the ball over, deserves the credit where it's due. But the hell with all of that right now this morning. The hell with all of that. Because you see, when we talk about the Cowboys, what do I always say? What do I religiously say? I call them an accident waiting to happen, and I say just take your time. Just be patient. Somehow, some way, Max, they will find a way to screw up. It's who they are. It's just who they are. They cannot help themselves. I have never questioned the Dallas Cowboys' talent. I have never questioned the brilliance of their interception for 8 yards. Don't speak to that. I know that Terrence Williams can play. I know that Jason Witten's a future Hall of Famer. I know that Ezekiel Elliott can play, even though he didn't look that great last night, and I'll get to him. Okay, I get all of that. I know their offensive line is stopped. But it doesn't matter. When it's the Cowboys, something will happen. Just sit. All you have to do is be patient, and they will find a way. I should have known this. Now, I picked them to win this game against the Giants. I was wrong. I don't care. I am happy to be wrong. It does not bother me in the slightest. Here is why. It's because of how they lost. Had they went up in there and just got smacked around or whatever the case may be, I would have been embarrassed by my pick. But as this game unfolded, I mean, the gods were just shining down on me. They were thinking about me, Max. He was thinking about me. The good Lord above was thinking about me. Because let's look at the last minute and 4 seconds. Dallas Cowboys get the ball. You desperately, desperately need to go down there and get a field goal. Now, mind you could have stopped the Giants, got the ball back earlier. But no, you allowed Rashad Jennings to look like the second coming of Emmitt Smith, for crying out loud. They kept giving him the ball. He rushed for about 35 yards and 6 carries. He got you 2 consecutive first downs, ultimately chewing out the clock, making you use all of your timeouts. You have nothing left available to you if you are the Dallas Cowboys. You got to get downfield. So what happens? They throw a pass to Jason Witten. He misses it. Why? Because the light, the sun shining down from the sky.
True.
It blinded him. I'm not making this up.
Football gods did not want them to win.
I'm not making this up. The sun is shining down on Texas Stadium, and it blinded him, so he couldn't see the pass. That was point number 1. Then you got an offside penalty by one of your offensive linemen. That's point number 2. And then last but not least, Mr. Terrence Williams, okay? Not Des Bryant, not Jason Witten, not even Cole Beasley, who was targeted 14 times, by the way, treating him like he's Des Bryant. But it was Terrence Williams. What does he do? You catch the football. You need to turn to your right, go out of bounds. What do? You go left. You get tackled. 6 seconds left. What happens? You're done. Excuse me. Why is that relevant here? Because Mr. Dan Bailey, y'all know that guy? Do you know his name?
Killing it all game.
How many field goals did this dude kick? You trying to tell me after the 56-yard field goal, this would have been about a 62-yard field goal. The previous 56-yard field goal that he kicked, which, by the way, he had kicked a 46, but it was penalized, so that to push him back 10 yards, okay? He still made that with ease. You trying to tell me he couldn't make an extra 6-yard field goal? Of course he could have. But his teammate, Terrence Williams, didn't give him the chance. And then last but not least, after such a boneheaded play, inexplicably displayed, you have no business making that kind of play. You practice for this, you train for this, you know better, you make the mistake anyway. What does your coach Jason Garrett do? He comes over there, the ultimate cheerleader himself, sitting there batting heads with everybody, every little play they make. He's celebrating with Des Bryant with the TD catch that he had, not realizing it was going to be called back because he lost possession. You're slapping everybody high five. You're patting everybody on the helmet. You're celebrating prematurely. This is from your head coach, mind you. Your head coach is celebrating as prematurely as the players do. And then Terrence Williams screws up, and what do? You go over there and pat him on the back. The glorified cheerleader of a coach that you have, that's how he chose to conduct himself. You cannot make this stuff up. I'm so surprised. Dallas Cowboys, once again, come through, not for their fans, not for themselves, but they certainly came through for me, being exactly who I know you to be. I'm so surprised. Max.
Well, this is not going to be pleasant for me. I picked the Giants to win. Saying something good about the Cowboys is like poison in my mouth. I hate it. However, Cowboys fans should feel pretty good this morning. I got to tell you.
Because
the Giants were lucky to win that game. First of all, McAdoo doesn't go for it 4th and 1. That was really, and head football coaches are by and large cowards when it comes to this kind of stuff. They coach to not be second-guessed. They coach to not lose rather than to try to win. 4th and 1, you're almost 65% likely to make a 4th and 1, just generally. But you brought it up. Did you see the way the Giants were running the ball on Dallas, on that defensive line?
That's right.
They were running it with no problem. I would say it's at least a 75% proposition that the Giants get an extra yard, and if they get that 1 yard, game over. But okay, they don't. So they punt. It doesn't turn out very well. Really, Dallas was in a position to win that game, and they should have won it. But Terrence Williams made a boneheaded play. Didn't run out of bounds. If he runs out of bounds, the chances are Dallas does win the game. So if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you're sitting there going, I don't have my starting quarterback. I'm starting a rookie quarterback. He's playing against, look, for what it's worth, the class of the NFC East. probably the best team in the division, at least on paper, if not in fact. We will find out. And against that team, with a rookie quarterback, who, by the way, when you look at the way the Giants are constructed, they spent that money on the D-line and on the corners. You look at the D-line and the corners, they're really good for the Giants. It's the linebackers and the safeties that are the problem. So can Dak Prescott not link up with Dez Bryant too much down the field? Well, from a rookie quarterback with good corners against a receiver, I can see that. But if you're a Cowboys fan, you're thinking, even with all of that, the Giants were lucky to beat us. They were lucky.
Let me say this. I get your point about the Giants having good corners, and we know that. Eli Apple didn't look bad yesterday at all. Let's give him some props. Dominic Rodgers, Cromartie, Jenkins, they all showed up. They performed. But at the same time, we talk about Dez Bryant here. If he doesn't have a stellar game, I understand that. One reception for 8 yards? No, I'm not accepting that. You need to do better than that. And not only that, and it's primarily not his fault because they targeted Beasley 4 times. They targeted Witten 12 times, okay? So that's an issue in and of itself because that speaks to the game planning of Jason Garrett and his offensive coordinator and the fact that they didn't get Dez Bryant involved enough. Not to mention the fact, let's recall that Dez Bryant is a relatively temperamental dude. You might not want him out there getting targeted only 3 to 5 times, only catching 1 reception for 8 yards. It's going to be hell for you if you don't get him actively involved. And last but not least, Max Kellerman, I got to say this, all right? And we will revisit this in the days and the weeks to come. I am keeping my eyes on Ezekiel Elliott. It was just one game. Please don't get me wrong. 51 yards on 20 carries, an average of 2.6 yards per carry. That is not impressive. Alfred Morris came from the Redskins, performed considerably better in the second half. I would have gone with him more if I were the Cowboys. Let me say this about Ezekiel Elliott. There is a name that jumps out in my mind when I'm watching him on this level. I know he was a stud at Ohio State. I know he can play the game of football. It was just one game, his first game in the NFL as a rookie, and that was a beautiful touchdown run that he had. The flip side is this. When I saw him, you know the name I thought of? Trent Richardson, out of Alabama. You know, miniature dude, stocky, hardcore, rough rider, but didn't have the elusivity that you need to have
Nor
on
did
the
he
NFL
have this
level.
offensive line
That's
that
what
Ezekiel
I'm saying.
Elliott
That's
has.
right. And so when I'm looking at Ezekiel Elliott, again, I get the fact that you're a rookie, and I'm not trying to judge him prematurely. I'm just acknowledging we need to keep our eyes on him because if he ain't the most elusive dude in the world on the NFL level, how good can I expect you to be? That is a question mark. Plus, I'd like to see him catch passes out of the backfield. But I am looking at him with a raised eyebrow right now.
So, if you're a Cowboys fan, you got to look at it and say, given everything you just said and everything I just said, you got to look at it and say, rookie quarterback, Dez could not be worse in terms of his contribution on the field statistically. Ezekiel Elliott, I don't care if you think he's going to be a bust. He ain't getting worse than 2 yards a carry. Ezekiel Elliott's going to get better because he can't get worse. Dez Bryant, we all know, is better than what he showed yesterday. And the Giants were lucky to beat you by a point. They were lucky. If you're a Cowboys fan, you're thinking, look, we're not in the worst position of all time.
But I will close it by saying this. I forgive you for your ignorance in this particular situation with this subject, Max Kellerman, and here is why. If you're not thinking about the history of the Cowboys, they find ways to mess it up for themselves. See, you're thinking, oh, you're still lucky because you know you still only lost by 1 point. No, they'll go against Super Bowl champions and be up by 14 and lose. They'll go against a scrub team and get blown out. They find ways to mess it up because it's in their DNA. They can't help themselves. They just can't help themselves.
And their defense was gassed enough that they made the Giants' offensive line look like the Cowboys' offensive line late in that game.
As soon as he didn't go out of bounds, in my head, I hear Stephen A. Say it with me now, people. Accident winning time. But as a Giants fan, right, it's an ugly win, but a win's a win, and the Giants are one.
Cowboys?
You know.
We're going to get into the Giants later on.
Looking forward to that.
We will.
So that's the fellas' thoughts on yesterday's NFC East battle. But we want to hear from you guys. Did the Giants prove they should be the favorite in the NFC? Go to Twitter now and cast your vote. We'll share those results a little later in the show. Meanwhile, what do the Patriots preach? Do your job. And Jimmy D, Jimmy G did just that with no Gronk on the road against a formidable Arizona defense, 2 rookie guards, 2 backup tackles. Garoppolo went 24 for 33, 264 pass yards and a TD. The Cardinals missed a last-minute field goal, lost by 2, 23-21. Max, let's start with you here. What did we learn last night?
Well, for those who didn't already know it, Bill Belichick, with time to prepare, is basically unbeatable.
Unreal.
That's really what, if you needed to learn. In opening games, in his last 13, he's now 12-1. 12-1. And Jimmy Garoppolo, 24 for 33, 264 passing yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. He looked good. He absolutely looked good. But they were doing this on the road without Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback ever, without Gronkowski. Remember when I said, hey, rest Gronkowski? Because you're probably going to lose the game anyway, but if you mess around and win, right? I mean, they messed around and won. On the road, the toughest game on their schedule, considering personnel available and who they were playing, on the road at Arizona to start the season, and that was before you knew they weren't going to have Gronk. They win that game? They mess around and win that game? It's why the Patriots, sometimes on paper you see them and it's not a great year for them, and the playoffs start and you go, well, they're not going to do business in these playoffs. And sure enough, they're in the AFC Championship game, and it's not even considered a successful season. Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback ever. What we learned yesterday, for those who didn't already know it, is Bill Belichick, with time to prepare, is completely unstoppable. Do you understand the Arizona defense was top 5 rated last year? Is an elite defense. They got the Honey Badger back. They have their full complement of players.
And Chandler Jones, too.
They have everyone, and new guy, right? They have everything they need there. They also have time to prepare, and they're at home, and you don't have Brady or Gronk, and you win. Bill Belichick, with time to prepare, just remember that, because people, for some reason, tend to forget it. I can't say it enough.
I am not going to sit up here and take anything away from Bill Belichick, who happens to be the greatest coach of our generation, as far as I'm concerned. You have people out there who want to swear that the man cheats. Well, damn it, learn to cheat as good as him, okay? I don't want to hear these complaints, okay? Because he's doing something right. Let's give the man credit where credit is due. We all know about the greatness of Tom Brady. I'm not about to bloviate about that. I can't believe you're letting the Arizona Cardinals off the hook. This is not just about Bill Belichick. This is about the fact that a coach that we revere, that we have profound respect for, who deserves our respect in Bruce Arians, had his team ill-prepared. This is about a team, the Arizona Cardinals, that showed up. They looked weak. They looked they didn't look ready. They didn't look prepared. They didn't look focused. It almost seemed like, okay, they don't have Tom Brady. They don't have Rob Gronkowski. We have nothing to worry about. We're 9.5-point favorites according to Vegas. We're going to handle our business. Everything is going to be all right. The Arizona Cardinals essentially look like a team that thought they were champions instead of recognizing the fact that they're not. That would happen to be the Denver Broncos. And by the way, the Denver Broncos beat the Carolina Panthers, who smacked you around in the NFC Championship game. To get smacked around in the NFC Championship game, to leave that residue in the minds and the hearts of Arizona Cardinals fans for the entire offseason, and then come and open this season on Sunday Night Football, nationally televised, and stink up the joint the way you stunk up the joint. If you are an Arizona Cardinal, you should feel ashamed of yourself this morning. You showed a dereliction of duty. You showed no focus whatsoever. Jimmy Garoppolo showed up and looked better than Carson Palmer. Jimmy Garoppolo and the New England Patriots scored. The Arizona Cardinals didn't score in the first quarter. When we look at some of these things here, remember, they finally did something. They finally forced a turnover. Chandler Jones, DJ Swearinger, they both created a turnover. What happens? They get penalized for choreographing a celebration. Okay, which basically neutralized them to such a degree. You're down 10-0, and you're celebrating. What the hell is wrong with you? See, this is the problem. And then when you see this lack of focus, that's the kind of stuff that you can point to. Arizona is too good, talent-wise, to allow their performance to look the way that they did. They tried to come back. They felt they came up short. But in the end, 10 of 16 third down conversions for the New England Patriots. Jimmy Garoppolo moving this team like he's an experienced veteran. What happened?
What do you think Jimmy G is on the roster for, Stephen A? You think Belichick's just carrying him?
So that's what we're doing now?
Well, he's
so that's
good.
What we
He's good, yeah.
So that's what we're doing now?
Yeah.
What we're doing, we're going like this. Anybody that wears a uniform. So in other words, you lose Tom Brady. It's no big deal because we got Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, I mean, we saw them lose Tom Brady and plug in Matt Castle and win 11 games that year.
In 2008, I got it.
And Brady's been in since then. What do you want?
All I'm trying to say to you is this. Jimmy Garoppolo it's not about you stepping on the field wearing the New England Patriots uniform. It's also the opponent that you're going against. The Honey Badger was back in the lineup. Peterson was there.
Right.
Chandler Jones is there. Calais Campbell and the crew are there. What the hell are you doing allowing Jimmy G to look like the second coming of Tom Brady in his first start? I mean, what are you doing?
Belichick puts him in a position to win. Look, Mariota is a really good young quarterback. I think we all know that. We accept that. He had a harder time
yesterday, though.
Right. He had a harder time against the Vikings defense than Garoppolo had against the Arizona defense. I think that's more of a commentary on Garoppolo and especially Belichick and the way he uses his offensive players than it is about Arizona rolling over and having their belly scratched.
I have watched games, for example, last year during the regular season, or whether it was last year or the year before, where the Kansas City Chiefs ran roughshod over the New England Patriots on a Monday night football game. What I am trying to say to you is that as great as Bill Belichick is, the bottom line is there have been down moments in his career. He hasn't won every Super Bowl. He hasn't always gotten it done. As phenomenal as he is.
So Jimmy Garoppolo must be pretty good then.
What I'm trying to say to you is, well, you could say Jimmy Garoppolo is still good.
You were
the
saying
jury
that
is still out. I'm saying the Arizona Cardinals were that bad yesterday. That's what I said. I don't know how the hell you got my message confused. I thought I was very, very clear and succinct and fluid in my commentary. I think that the Arizona Cardinals did not show up last night. I think they dropped the ball, and I think they need to get their act together and stop acting like they want something.
So in that case, of the last 13 teams the Patriots have played opening day, 12 of them have dropped the ball. Because that's what the Patriots do week one. They beat you because Belichick just on a normal week is tough enough. But now he has weeks and weeks to prepare. He knew he wasn't going to have Tom Brady available to him. He knew Gronk was banged up. I mean, he had to be preparing for the eventuality, the possibility he wouldn't have Gronk. So now Belichick has weeks and weeks to prepare for you.
So,
he's going to beat you.
You know
That's
what?
the history
You got weeks and weeks to prepare for a Super Bowl. He's lost a couple of those. Now, I don't want to hear that argument. The fact is the Arizona Cardinals are a fully loaded crew that is more than capable of playing better than they played last night and allowing the New England Patriots to convert on 10 to 16 third downs with Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback, okay, without Gronkowski, all right, at his disposal. It's just ridiculous.
Maybe it's the best thing that happened to him, and they'll respond to it.
Maybe
the
so.
Patriots would be 6-0 in the Belichick era, if not for two superhuman performances by the great Eli Manning. Other than that, other than two of the most clutch performances ever, they'd have been 6-0 in the Super Bowl.
Nothing is certain in life but death, taxes, and the Patriots will do their job. A little later, we'll discuss Jimmy G, that pretty boy swag, and if he is the future. But coming up, the Browns got an up-close personal look at a quarterback they passed on in this year's draft. Should they have any regrets on letting Carson go? Find out next.
How does he handle the big moment?
You have to take everything into consideration. Why? For what?
Come on, dude.
He sued everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Now we have to watch what's actually happening.
USA.
But I'm good.
Carson Wentz, the rookie out of North Dakota State, is the first rookie quarterback to start a season opener for the Eagles since when? 1939. He went 4 for 5 for 57 yards and a TD on his first NFL drive. His lone incompletion was a drop by Jordan Matthews. Wentz finishing the day with 22 of 37 for 278 yards and 2 TDs. Stephen A., should the Browns regret not drafting Wentz?
I think it's premature to say that, but I will tell you this. Carson Wentz was incredibly impressive. I was very, very impressed with him. I'm looking at his numbers here, 22 of 37 for 278 yards. I watched the whole game from start to finish. That pass to Jordan Matthews, I mean, that could not have been a more picture-perfect, touchdown pass. I mean, he threw it right where he needed to be, over his shoulder, in the left corner of the end zone for the Eagles score. It was a beautiful, beautiful pass. The 58-yard completion that he connected, I'm sorry, not him. But to Aguilar, the 35-yard touchdown pass, I mean, that was impressive in and of itself. There's no doubt about that. Overall, I'm looking at the Eagles, and I'm going to tell you who I would give the game ball to, Max, if it was anybody. It would be the coach, Doug Peterson. I mean, when you look at what they did right here, I mean, they ran the ball a lot. They ran the ball 34 times, 133 yards. Ryan Matthews had 22 of those carries, only averaged like 3.5 yards per carry. But you ran the ball.
Stayed with
and
it.
The reason why that's such a big deal is because let's think about the era that he's succeeding here. He's succeeding the Chip Kelly era. So what happens? Chip Kelly wants to be high power. Yes, he wants to run the football a lot, no doubt, but he's also wanting to pass too. And he had no regard for his defense. He left them out there as sacrificial lambs to essentially hang and dry, had them on the field gassed all the time. By running the football, moving the chains, you put yourself in a position to give the defense much needed rest so they were able to go out there and perform, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. Pass defense-wise, Nolan Carroll did get burned by Terrell Pryor, all right, which Terrell Pryor, by the way, has got me fantasizing about Cleveland, to piggyback off your point about what Cleveland could potentially be, because when Josh Gordon comes back, with Terrell Pryor playing wide receiver spot the way he plays.
Week 5, everybody. That's what you got to wait on.
Which is why I'm being
Max
premature, because I've got to see it. And not only that, I saw several dudes dropping passes from RG3. That was not RG3's fault. In the end, he only completed 12 of 26 passes. As far as I'm concerned, 16 of them should have been completions. But RG3 was getting his passes dropped. Had they been caught, he would have easily had over 250 yards passing and would have easily had about 16 completions, rather. So I'm saying the jury is still out, but I will tell you this. It's not about whether or not the Browns made the wrong decision. It's about whether or not the St. Louis Rams made the wrong decision. Because they did have the #1 overall pick. And you do have Jared Goff, who isn't even on the active roster. But this dude, Carson Wentz, who played 1 AA football in his collegiate career, is showing up in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform, completed nearly 60% of his passes, okay? Threw for 278 yards, didn't commit a single turnover. But I got to give Doug Peterson and your offensive coordinator credit for that, because they had a nice game plan. It was against the Browns. The jury is still out. But Carson Wentz looks like he could be the real deal.
So many points you made there. So many good points.
I usually do. I usually do.
You do. You make a lot of good points.
Thanks so much.
Which is why I'm so impressed with beating you in these arguments every day.
It never happens.
Not like,
it never happens. I'm still waiting for you to do it, but it's okay. It's allowed to dream.
So many good points, and you said a lot of things there. The question was, however, should the Browns regret not drafting Wentz?
And I answered it by saying not yet. Let's wait and see.
You answered it by saying you don't
know. Not yet. One game.
Oh.
One game. I haven't defined his career by one game. I'm so sorry.
See more.
It's such a crime.
I'll answer the question. Don't worry, so we can have a conversation about this. The answer is no, they did not make a mistake. Carson Wentz passes the eyeball test week 1. Anyone who denies that's not telling you the truth. You know, sometimes you get a fight, and you know going in that the A fighter, the top-billed guy, is in with an easy opponent. You still can't help it but to be impressed when he beats the guy up. You know that he's playing the Browns defense. Fine. That's still an NFL defense-ish at the moment. And Carson Wentz, just you look at him, the eyeball test passed. That looked like an NFL quarterback, and he's a rookie, and he didn't know he was going to start until pretty recently, and he had banged-up ribs in the preseason. Eyeball test yet? Yes. It is only one game. Not so much does he have the ability to get it done, but can he do it consistently, and can he stay healthy? Those are question marks. So anyone who tells you that he was a slam dunk, surefire, franchise quarterback in college, given Division 1A, as you say, that he played in, I don't think is being honest about their assessment in spite of how he looked. And when you look at the Browns, they have a million holes to plug. They have a lot to do. They needed draft picks to get that done. Hugh Jackson's an offensive line guru. They need help there. Their defense is Swiss cheese. They need help there. Now, they have a quarterback who's gotten it done in the past in the NFL. I agree with your assessment about him yesterday. He's better than his numbers will show. And when Josh Gordon gets back, as I've been saying all along, that's going to be tough to contend with in terms of the stretch vertical game with those two. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and that should improve the rest of their core. But you even think back to Jimmy Johnson, the last time the Dallas Cowboys were great, right? And you can point to Troy Aikman. Hey, if you have a chance to grab a franchise quarterback, grab him. But you know what happened right after they grabbed Troy Aikman in '89? The Herschel Walker deal, where they were able to accumulate draft picks and plug in holes. All of a sudden, a year or two later, look at the offensive line, look at the defense. And what Hugh Jackson essentially is saying, and what the Browns organization, D. Podesta, whom you've praised in the past, is saying with this draft is, look, Carson Wentz looks the part, a couple guys look the part. We're not convinced that that's a franchise quarterback, and even if you're convinced it's franchise, grab him. But we're not so sure. And in the meantime, we don't want him to get killed behind a porous offensive line. We have so many issues to take care of anyway. Let's trade down in this draft. Let's not try to invent a franchise quarterback if we don't think he's there. Let's not try to map on our hopes for a franchise quarterback onto a guy we're not sure that is a. Let's use him to make our entire team better, as the Cowboys did once upon a time. And then when we have that in place and we identify the guy we think is the guy, that's when we'll make our move. He passed the eyeball test, but that does not mean the Browns made a mistake. They did not make a mistake. They did the right thing.
Well, we're sort of agreeing on your point there, but here's the thing that I think is important to bring up. You had to make changes. You ultimately did. You lose a guy, all right? You cut veteran defensive starters Carlos Dansby and Dante Whitner. You had 14 draft picks this past April. You're clearly moving in that direction. Here's the part that you can't ignore, and there's two parts, Max. Number one, there's no position more important than the quarterback position. Every NFL official has told us that. The players confirm it. The aficionados repeatedly regurgitate that. That's point number one. Point number two, recognizing that, let's also remember that in the second half of yesterday, even though RG3 passed for 72 yards, he completed 3 passes the entire second half. And so when you look at it from that perspective, that's something to be alarmed about, because here we are. We know that you're going to throw the football. You need to throw the football. You completed 9 of 15 passes for 118 yards in the first quarter. But you turn around, and what do? You complete just 3 passes the entire second half. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and by the way, you attempted 11 passes in the second half. So again, even though they're trying to say, well, he had to throw the ball in the second half, evidently it wasn't that much because you only threw 11 passes. Now, he did get a bit tweaked, he did get a little injured, but he says he's okay. What I'm trying to say to you is that whether it's durability or whether it's confidence or whether it's personnel or whatever, there's a litany of questions at the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns. And if you have those questions, I'm saying to you, the jury is still out, but I can't definitively poo-poo the notion of Carson Wentz potentially in a Cleveland Browns uniform as opposed to RG3, because if the quarterback position is as pivotal as they say it is have that impact, which we all know that it does have, because there's plenty of teams that are damn good everywhere else, but their quarterback position is so weak they can't win games. You have to look at it from that perspective and ask yourself the question, is again, at some point, we're going to find ourselves revisiting whether or not Cleveland made a mistake.
Well, sure, but everything you just said about RG3 and the questions about the Browns' passing game, those were the same questions that people had about Carson Wentz. I mean, those were the same. Can he consistently do it on an NFL level passing the ball?
But it's the reasons why.
Is he too injury prone? The point is, do you spend the draft pick there when there's another guy out there about whom you have the same questions, who was also once upon a time the #2 draft pick, who's already gotten it done at a very high level when he was healthy on the NFL level, who doesn't cost you any draft picks. He costs you a few bucks, and not that many. And you can take him while you're building the foundation for your team and see if there's anything there. Because if there is, look at that. You just beat the system. And if there's not, you'll draft a quarterback in a year or two when you're not very good.
Again, I feel where you're coming from, but what I'm saying is that's saying that all of these other parts of things we desperately need and a quarterback position is essentially not a priority right now. I'm just saying to you that's very unconventional thinking, because the conventional thinking is everybody pointing to the importance of the quarterback position.
I agree, but
that's
what
all I'm saying.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying.
No question. This is what I'll say, and Casey Joyner, the football scientist, and others harp on this. If you believe you have identified a franchise quarterback, you go, well, that's the guy.
But if you have a question.
There's no price too high.
But if you have a question.
If you have a question, all of a sudden you got to take the price of draft picks, et cetera, into consideration. And I think this was not a slam dunk draft for any quarterback in this draft, including Goff, including Wentz, including anyone, Prescott or anyone else. And so there's not one guy you say, yes, that guy, that's the guy. And you can't even say the Eagles said that because they picked second. If the Rams would have taken Carson Wentz, they'd have been stuck with Goff.
Yeah, but they had confidence in Goff and Wentz. They didn't have confidence in anybody else at that particular moment. Right now, that doesn't look great. But at the time, they were saying, well, these are the two guys. Everybody identified those guys as the two guys. And by the way, last point, I didn't hear anybody talking about Carson Wentz in terms of question marks outside of him being a rookie. You didn't have any questions about his durability until he got hurt that first preseason game. So, I mean, it's not like they came into the draft. He got drafted and then showed up in training camp. And in the preseason, he got hurt.
There was competition. There was question about
double A, one double A.
And now you're going from that to the NFL.
Okay. All right.
Which is almost as good as the SEC at times.
Eagles fans definitely should feel optimistic, but we got to see him against a tougher defense for sure. Actually, Wentz had more drop passes 4 than Griffin 3.
Then after Miami, I played in Phoenix. I'd like to thank Steve Kerr. He was the first general manager to actually call me and say I was being traded. All the other times I found out because of loud-ass Stephen A. Smith on ESPN.
Stephen A. Smith. My brother. He was there with me throughout it all. And you're always going to be my big brother. I always love you, bro. You always kept it 1,000 with me. You always was honest and told it like I needed to hear it. And I love and respect you for that.
You do always keep it honest. Shaq and AI giving you a shout-out, showing you love during their Hall of Fame speeches. That's pretty special.
Well, I just wanted to take a moment to say that was one of the most humbling nights I've ever had in my life. I love both of those dudes. I've known them for years. Shaq is, you know, my man for life, and AI is like a little brother to me. I mean, he's been through a lot of things that even people, no matter how much you think you know about him, you don't even know. You don't know what he's been through. You don't know the trials and tribulations he's had to endure. You think you may know. And you certainly don't know the hits that he took for people within his inner circle, the things that they did and he ultimately took blame for. And I was incredibly honored and humbled that they mentioned me in their speeches, and I got a lot of love for them. And I just wanted to say thank you, and I was incredibly humbled by it. I just wanted to say that.
And we want to say congratulations to Shaq and AI and the entire 2016 Hall of Fame class. Obviously, we'd be getting more into it if it wasn't our first NFL week here. But let's go back to the NFL now. The national anthem protest continued in week 1. Just like the Seahawks, the Chiefs linked arms during the national anthem at Arrowhead Stadium, and cornerback Marcus Peters raised his fist. Then Patriots tight end Martellus Bennett and defensive back Devin McCourty stood with the team during the singing of the anthem. Bennett and McCourty both raised their right fists in the air at the end of the anthem as well. Stephen A., are these protests starting to get old?
I'm sure it's getting old in the eyes of those who never wanted the protest to take place in the first place. But it's certainly not getting old to me. It's certainly not getting old to a vast majority of black men and women in this nation who feel that as far as we've come, we still have a long way to go. Max repeatedly in the past has quoted the great Dr. Martin Luther King, who stated that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We recognize that, and we recognize that those statements were made and protests were encouraged even in the throes of civil rights legislation being implemented into the fabric of the of America and its culture. Why? Because no matter what trials and tribulations we go through, even with our Pledge of Allegiance, it still recognizes that it's a long way to go. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is stand one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Those last verses of that line, a vast majority of African Americans in this country do not believe it has been applicable to our community. And so when you look at a Colin Kaepernick and he makes such a statement, and you see a Brandon Marshall making the statement that he made playing for the Denver Broncos, yet a product he was endorsing, the company basically severed their ties with him. It shows how we have a long way to go. Here we are in the United States of America, and First Amendment of our Constitution talks about freedom of speech, okay? And so this guy doesn't disrupt the game, doesn't harm anybody, doesn't get in the way of anything. He simply took a knee to bring attention to what Colin Kaepernick had brought attention to, talking about the plight of African Americans in our communities as it pertains to the actions of some police officers. Not police brutality where we want to taint the entire institution of law enforcement officials, but just to bring attention to the fact that there are a few of them who have gone rogue. It has happened for decades. It happened in Cincinnati years ago. It happened in Detroit years ago. It's happened in New Orleans. It's happened other places. And, and now more attention is being brought to it again. Because this man, Brandon Marshall, decides to join in concert with Colin Kaepernick to take a stand in an effort to bring attention to the plight of African Americans, you, as an endorsement company, are going to sever ties with them. As far as I'm concerned, that reeks of hypocrisy. It is as un-American as it gets, and it's something that needs to be recognized here. In the end, Max, what it comes down to is that, again, raising your hand, like Martellus Bennett was doing, and others, getting on a knee. You are not disrespecting your military. I certainly appreciated your position Friday, Max, when you alluded to how on 9/11 there's a heightened level of sensitivity that we should all have. I totally agree with you totally agree with you. But in the end, at the same time, if you're not talking about that, if you're talking about what our country is supposed to stand for, but attacking its hypocrisy due to its inconsistency, and all you've done is take a knee or raise a hand in the air or a fist per se, and that is enough for Brandon Marshall to lose his endorsement deal, I think it speaks to how far we have to go and how far we have yet to go because of actions on the part of others who have dissenting opinions about something like that. It's really unfortunate, it's sad, but it is what it is. But I think that the people, to answer the question directly, the people who were against it, certainly they're getting tired of it. But a plethora of African Americans and minorities in our nation, they're not tired of it at all. Their mentality is, we're just getting started.
That was beautifully said. And let me say the NFL, who I have targeted as being hypocritical in the past on a variety of issues, including this one in a sense that those in the NFL who object to it, the NFL paid patriotism. John McCain, not exactly a bleeding heart lefty, right? John McCain with the report talking about how the NFL, discussing how the NFL was taking money from the military to stage these kind of patriotic, and then the NFL was shamed into giving the money back and not doing it anymore. So I've taken plenty of shots at the NFL along those lines. I need to say the NFL has handled this properly. They have a rule that it's encouraged to stand up, it's not compulsory. They have gone by that, even though this is spreading and it's becoming more of an issue. And the other way, where people are like, well, this doesn't make sense. Odell Beckham and Victor Cruz and Williamson, the Titans linebacker, and McAfee, the Colts punter, they wanted to wear on 9/11 cleats that were not regulation because they were American flag cleats. That's an ultimate show of patriotism. And the league said, sorry, but that's not uniform, and you're going to have to be fined for that. And as people of conscience, they said, all right, that's okay. We're going to do it anyway. And if this really is handled properly, that fine money will go to some kind of a patriotic cause. If everyone's so pro-military, obviously we're pro-men and women in uniform, then fine, give the money there. But my point is that the NFL is here being consistent. They're saying, here is the brand, here are our rules. We're not going to bend them or break them. That includes if someone's protesting, we're going to let them protest. That includes if someone wants to make a patriotic gesture, okay, but here in the rule, there's going to be a fine for that. And I think they're being even-handed and correct about their approach here. And so I never give them credit for much. Frequently, the NFL, because they're this monolith, is the target of criticism. Anything, we all love the product, and yet we find reasons to criticize them, among everyone else who does it. But here, they're actually behaving very well. And I think the reason for that is, as Josh Marshall of Talking Points Memo points out recently, there is the most powerful political force in this country right now is actually a multiracial coalition. You talk about people of color being, being discriminated against and obviously systematically oppressed throughout the history of this country. And is that the driving force here? Absolutely. But there is actually a multiracial coalition in this country now bringing about political and social change. And the NFL is recognizing, because it's not just black players. There are white players in various sports saying, wait a minute, I stand with Kaepernick, or rather kneel with him. And that frankly, there aren't enough people of color, at least African-American people, to form a powerful enough political or social political coalition to really affect social change to the extent that it needs to be affected by themselves. You need a multiracial coalition. I actually think that's what's going on here, and that changing wind is what the NFL is responding to.
Let me chime in here by saying this. I disagree with the point that there are not enough of us. Certainly, you need a multiracial coalition. I definitely agree with that because ultimately that's where the potency comes from. But let's be clear. We all know that affect people's wallets and their hearts and minds will follow. And black folks in the United States of America spend in excess of $1.3 trillion. And so when you look at it from that perspective, if black folks were unified, all right, resolutely, I might add, in a quest to bring attention and fairness to the issues that permeate us as a society, not just as a black community, but as an overall American society. And we were willing to put our money where our mouth is collectively to make sure that we affected other folks' wallets. I assure you we would have the potency and the power to make a difference. The problem is, on far too many occasions, we appear more divided than we should be. In this particular instance, I mean, even now, you've got players locking arms with one another to be about all in, all one. But Colin Kaepernick is talking about police brutality against people of color, and particularly the African-American community. You have those who are siding with Kaepernick, and then you have those who are kneeling for another reason or are raising their fist for another reason. And so because of that, again, there has to be some coming together. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is what you said, which is absolutely correct. The NFL has handled this beautifully. And to me, it's how everybody in America should handle it beautifully. The people that had allowed Brandon Marshall to endorse their product should simply have said, he has a right to do that, okay? We don't necessarily agree with that, but we shouldn't require that everybody agrees with us in lockstep in order to be an endorser of our product. That's really un-American to me. It reeks of hypocrisy.
Yes, and my point about the multiracial coalition is that people of conscience, people who are socially conscious, should want to stand with the oppressed. We see a racial divide in our country. And there are a lot of, I mean, there's no other way, white people who are aging and older and angry about things, who want to hold on to the status quo. But that doesn't represent all white people.
That's right.
And there are those who are socially conscious who say, wait a minute, our fellow citizens are suffering. There's been a history of oppression in this country, and we stand with them because they are America. So if they're suffering, we need to stand there too, because that means America is suffering. And that climate is what the NFL, I believe, is responding to. I don't know that the NFL responds this way 30 years ago, when that climate did not exist to this extent.
Well, Max is absolutely right. And at the end of the day, it comes down to what I've said repeatedly. Even when blacks were marching, civil rights legislation and what have you in the 60s, there were white people who joined black folks and helped make it happen. That ultimately is ideal. But before white folks were willing to jump in and help, there was a coalition of African Americans who came together and marched in lockstep with one another to get things done, even with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, not necessarily having the same approach to addressing particular issues. Their goals were clearly the same.
I want to add one more thing, and I know it's a separate issue. You guys are both from New York. Yesterday was September 11th, 15 years ago, since that tragedy terrorized our nation. Our heart goes out to all the victims, the loved ones, their families, the first responders. They're the real heroes, and we will never forget.
Thank you.
Take along for the Redskins to know Josh Norman was worth the $75 million contract they signed him to. His opponents in the first 3 weeks, Antonio Brown in the Steelers, Des Bryant in the Cowboys, and Odell Beckham in the Giants. And look who is here. We are so happy to have Ryan Clark here with us. You know a thing or two about these two teams.
Yeah, I played for both of them. How about that?
Yes, you did. What are your thoughts, your expectations tonight, Antonio Brown against Josh Norman?
So here's the thing. I'm going to mention a couple of names. Byron, as in Byron Maxwell. Namdi, as in Namdi Asamoah. So here's what happens. These guys play a particular brand of ball. Josh Norman is a very good corner at anticipating route combinations. He's a really good bail cover 3 corner, which means he's not a press guy, a guy you want to play man-to-man with all the time. So when these guys get these big contracts, and it happened in Philly twice, So it may just be Philadelphia.
Byron Maxwell being one of them.
Exactly.
And
Nnamdi Asomugha, right.
You're right.
And so
Happens in Washington too, by the way.
And
Just so the corners as much.
You know, and so these guys go to these teams, get these big deals, and you ask them to be something they were not before they got the money. So they come there and say, you're going to play man-to-man. You're going to follow the best receiver. You're going to play inside, outside, do all these different things that you haven't done before because we gave you a certain amount of money. Now, when I listen to Joe Barry say, you know what, we're going to put a lot of guys on him, but they counteract that by moving Antonio Brown around. You know what that tells me? He's not a dummy. He doesn't think he can stick Josh Norman in front of Antonio Brown and him not get torched. Everyone talks about this Odell Beckham Jr. Josh Norman matchup. Well, I watched it. And when he was pressed man and standing in front of Odell, he dropped one touchdown and he caught the other. So if you're Josh Norman, if you're Joe Barry in this Washington Redskins defense, here's what you think. Well, Marcus Wheaton isn't playing. Are we scared of Sammy Coates? Are we scared of Eli? I don't even know who Eli Rogers is, and I played for Pittsburgh. Are we scared of Darius Hayward-Bay? You're not scared of these guys. So play your defense. Don't ask Josh Norman to go out and have to be something he's not. I'm a big Lakers fan. Well, I'm a big Kobe fan. Let me not.
Just say the Kobe's.
I'm gonna be true. I'm gonna be truthful. I'm a big Kobe fan. And I remember the Detroit Pistons when they played Kobe and Shaq and they beat them 4-1. The one thing they did was they said, Shaq, get yours. We're going to stop everybody else. That's what the Washington Redskins have to do tonight. Josh Norman can talk big and say all these things. Nobody wants to see Antonio Brown for 4 quarters with Big Ben at quarterback, one-on-one. It's like saying, you know what? I know Triple G has the crown and I want the belt, but do I really want to fight him? And that's what Josh Norman stands. He's been very quiet, and Antonio Brown's not a talker. They're going to have to employ the whole defense. Brashard Breeland, D'Angelo Hall, who plays safety now, who can come down and play the slot. If they are smart, they just play their defense, allow Josh Norman to play zone, play his side, and contain Antonio Brown as a team. Because if they match him up man-to-man, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, when you go man-to-man with Triple G, as Kel Brook bravely did, you wind up with a broken orbital bone.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the problem. That's why people don't want to do it.
And your corner
Albert
does no
Hainsworth,
mas.
to your point, Albert Hainsworth wrote an interesting letter to his younger self in the Players Tribune that players sometimes do, and he mentioned that, and he was a Washington signing. Hey, just remember, put yourself in a system that works for you, right? Like, a lot of these great players are also players who are put in positions to succeed, not to do something that they're not used to doing. Now, here's the rub for Josh Norman. Even if they use him perfectly and he does everything he's supposed to do and he plays responsibly, there will be times tonight where he is on your TV screen because he's done enough to get himself close to the play, and Antonio Brown's going to be hauling in catches for big yardage gains, and it's going to look bad for Josh Norman. I mean, this is what he signed up for when he signed that contract. He is not a cover corner. That's not what he does best. And even if you are, and it is what you do best, unless you're Deion Sanders in this league, you're going to get burnt sometimes.
Last year, Chris Harris Jr., they were talking about this amazing streak of almost 2 years that he'd never given up a touchdown, and it was a long day. I think for like 17 catches, 2 tubs, 200 yards for Antonio Brown. It's a tough cover.
It is. Well, now, without Le'Veon Bell, too, by the way, D'Angelo Williams was really good last year, but he's not Le'Veon Bell. So that makes it a little easier. But even if they do everything perfectly, Josh Norman is going to look bad sometimes. Whether or not it was his fault, he will be on your TV screen as Antonio Brown does something spectacular.
Well, let's keep in mind that Josh Norman ended up in Washington because their zone schemes is familiar to him because of what they did in Carolina. So he benefits from that. I'm going to get straight to the point. I got the Redskins winning tonight, and I'm a diehard Steelers fan. I love my Steelers. I hope I'm wrong. But here's my concern. Martavis Bryant, you know him, couldn't stay off the weed. All right, so he ends up getting himself suspended for the season. And then you got Le'Veon Bell, who got his 4-game suspension reduced to 3, pretty much for the same thing again. So you got your best running back, even though D'Angelo Williams is no joke, got mad love and respect for D'Angelo Williams. He's a friend of the show. Then you've got Martavis Bryant. Do I believe in Sammy Coates? Sure. I'm sure he worked hard in the offseason. He shows promise. This is Monday night, first game where you really put into that situation. I don't know. Marcus Wheaton, he could play. He showed some bright spots tail end of the season, particularly the playoffs.
He'll be out this week.
And he'll be out this week.
Yep.
I didn't even realize that.
Yep.
Yes, he will be out. So Marcus Wheaton's out. Martavis Bryant's out. Heath Miller is gone. Ladarius Green, he's new. So chemistry, camaraderie, even though he's athletic and has speed and obviously is more of a threat than Heath Miller was, he wasn't reliable. In all the years that Big Ben has been in Pittsburgh, there's only 2 years that he's been without Heath Miller, a few years ago and this one. And so I'm looking at it from that perspective. We still have to develop chemistry with one another. Ladarius Green and himself. Antonio Brown is Antonio Brown. D'Angelo Williams is D'Angelo Williams. Sammy Coates, is he really ready? And then we talk about Josh Norman. We're looking at Breland. Josh Norman and Breland can play.
Yes.
D'Angelo Hall, let me tell you what I love about D'Angelo. Outside of the fact that he seems to be a straight-up brother, just let you know how he feels, reminds me of you in that regard. I love y'all. Here's the deal. What I like about D'Angelo, when I spoke to him, he knows what he's not anymore.
Yes.
And that's a big deal. I mean, look, I'm a free safety because I'm not the corner I used to be. So I'm looking at self-awareness is a big, especially when you're going up against Big Ben with Antonio Brown. Self-awareness is everything. So he knows what he is. And then this is why I think I don't think they're going to win the game because they're going to stop Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's going to put up some points. My problem is with the Steelers' defense. First of all, you were suspect to begin with. I keep talking to Coach T, Mike Tomlin, about that. I keep talking about, he believes in his team. I keep telling him, damn it. I keep trying to tell you about that damn secondary. I got issues. I got issues with him. I got issues with the secondary of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then on top of it all, we've been raving about Bud Dupree. He's out. So, that's a big... am I supposed to sit here with a straight face and tell you as a diehard Steeler fan that I'm supposed to believe in a Jarvis Jones or a Ryan Shazier? I know they could play, but damn it, tell me I'm wrong, Ryan. Every time we turn around, well, they're coming along.
Well, here's the thing.
And they're getting... Wait, when you going to get there?
Shazier's a star.
Okay.
He's been injured.
You're right.
He's been injured.
I'm not talking about
He's
him.
a monster.
Sorry, I meant Jarvis Jones.
Right.
Shazier can play.
Right. Yeah, Jarvis Jones, he's a guy coming out of Georgia.
Suspect.
We expected to be really good, and he hasn't performed.
And by the way,
he hasn't performed.
the Steelers, 5 of the last 6 drafts, your first round, second round picks, all been defense. Winners won it.
Stephon Tuitt can play. Cam Hayward's coming off for injury. He says he'll be ready. Look at Artie Burns. You go get Gilbert. Can he be better than he was in Cleveland? This is a guy that was a top 10 pick.
And also, Steelers are going to have to outscore him. The question is, can Kirk Cousins dink and dunk? Because he's basically a dink and dunk passer.
No, he can throw it downfield, though. He can throw it downfield, though.
I want to see early in the game if someone burnt Deshaun Jackson, I bring up obviously, but if someone can get behind the defense, can Kirk Cousins stretch it out early in the game?
Well, this is what I'll say.
I don't think he can dunk his way
I will
past
say
Ben
this about Kirk. I'll say this about Kirk. When he won the job last year, I was like, if you get good Kirk, he's a monster. And we saw good Kirk late in the season. And he can throw the ball deep. And he also throw it accurately.
Well, let me go.
He's going to have to do it.
Wait a minute.
Yes, I agree.
Wait a minute. We're talking about Antonio Brown. Let me say this to you, Max Kellerman and Ryan. Let's make sure when we mention Deshaun Jackson, the operative word is decoy. Even if he don't catch passes, the fact that he's on the field, you got to pay. You better have somebody back there. You better have somebody back there.
I know it's preseason. Remember preseason.
And the other thing is, too, Jordan Reed.
Oh, he's stud.
Jordan
Reed.
Reed.
Stud.
You stretch it.
Stud.
If you look at Kirk Cousins' ascension last year, it was when Jordan Reed got healthy and they started to feature him in the offense. This is the deal. Antonio Brown is going to get his yardage. If people in the D.C. area, the DMV, are expecting Josh Norman to come in and shut down Antonio Brown, I advise you to not watch the game. Because Big Ben and Antonio Brown have a chemistry and a camaraderie that's unmatched.
I'm not worried about the shootout. I'm not worried about the Steelers' offense at all. My problem is that damn defense petrified. And you got to remember, Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson are entering the final year of their contracts. They both looking to make some noise now.
Steelers defense get better
Jordan
or
Reed's
worse?
a stud.
You think Steelers?
It got better.
It got better.
It gets better.
And last year,
it's a better defense.
The defense was their problem.
It's a better defense this year.
Their problem last year was the offense was never all healthy on the field at the same time. But the defense was a bend but don't break variety that could have done something.
You're not
and
picking
it got
up on
better.
this, Max. I don't like when he says that. I mean, every time, Ryan, I'm getting on you right now. Every single time, every year, Ryan, because this is about the third year. This is about the third year you've been here. Look. Every single time
It was a transition last year.
Every time you say to me that you always believe in the Steelers defense.
Always.
They're getting better or worse?
They got better, but here's the thing. They've transitioned to a bend but don't break defense. Once you lose Coach LeBeau and Coach Tomlin has his footprint on the team,
last year.
they're going to
Stephen
be
A.
better
got
in
better
the
or
pass
worse?
defense.
Hold up. Did the defense get better or worse?
Look, damn it, I'll wait and
That's a
see.
yes or
Max.
no.
No, it's not a lesson. Did they play yet, Max? Did they?
What do you
Did the
suspect?
Steelers play
What
yet?
do you
Did the
suspect?
Steelers play yet, Max?
Do you
It is our job. It is our job to analyze, and make the discussions and the points for our team.
Why can't I wait?
I was there with you.
I can't wait
You
for
were
another
Steelers
night.
You can't wait because it's not Tuesday.
Look. I need
We
to
gotta
see
go
them
to break.
tonight.
Ryan, you are staying with us.
I'm thinking about going to the game tonight because of this. I'm telling you right now.
You going?
I might go.
The New York Football Giants, with the 1-point dub on the road, their $200 million defense allowed the fewest points for a Giants team at AT&T Stadium. Eli had his 41st career game with 3 TDs, and Victor Cruz with his first salsa in the end zone in 721 days. So we asked you guys earlier in the show, should the Giants be the favorite in the NFC East? The results are in, and 62% are haters.
That might be a yes, though, because there are 4 teams in the NFC East, so that might be the odds-on favorite. Just saying.
Class F full mentality to my left.
62% for everyone else, 38% for them.
Ryan, break it down for us. Did the Giants prove that they're the favorites in the NFC East?
No, and that's what armchair quarterbacks do. You know, after the first game or the first week, we sit around, because I'm one of those guys now, too. We sit around and say, who's going to win the MVP? Who's going to win the Super Bowl? And we say these things. You played a team with a rookie quarterback who nobody planned on starting the first week for the Dallas Cowboys. It's also a rookie running back. It's a team that we've talked all summer about being depleted because of whether it's injuries or suspensions, losing so much defensively. We didn't think they'd be able to stop a nosebleed. And so you come into this week, and Eli wasn't spectacular. No, he spread the ball around. You see him, he used Cruz, he used Shepard. And so that was a good sight. Jennings was able to run the ball, but we expected him to be able to against this team. Now, does that say that they're better than the Dallas Cowboys? They were last night. Maybe if Terrence Williams goes out of bounds, instead of trying to get up the field, they're able to get a field goal off or get another play. If Cole Beasley doesn't drop the ball early on in the game, they have a touchdown. They don't have those red zone stalls where they're not able to put points on the board by scoring touchdowns and having to kick field goals. So what I saw was that they were a better team than the Dallas Cowboys last night. They didn't show me that they're a team that's much different from last year's, other than the fact that they finished. Now, here's my issue. Here's my issue, though. You love Eli, just like everybody else in New York loves Eli.
I know,
because he had
Super Bowl MVP. What's there to love?
Because he had a great playoff run. Yay! You know what?
Great playoff.
Two. I'm sorry. You know what
Two of the
bothers
greatest
me?
of all time.
You know what bothers me about Eli?
What's that?
That Carr is standing in front of Shepard, and he throws it right to him. For my 2-time MVP, for the guy I love so much, he had these 2 great runs. You can't make that throw against good football teams. Experienced, veteran, former Pro Bowl quarterback who has an interception issue. That was interception 200. Can't make that throw. And when you make that throw, you can't walk off the field looking like Jameis Winston was looking on the sideline when Dalvin Cook fumbled the ball running into the end zone last week. You have to be able to keep your team on the straight and narrow and not make those plays if you're going to count on Eli down the stretch. He's going to be the same old Eli. And they didn't win this game. They didn't win this game because they executed so well. They won this game because the Dallas Cowboys didn't. Because you have a quarterback who can't say, Terrence Williams, when I throw you this ball running toward the sideline, don't turn it up, which is something Tony Romo would be screaming. We need to see this team play more weeks, more efficiently, continue to spread the ball like they did, and we need more time to see this defense make plays, because it wasn't because they were outstanding defensively. It was because they played a team that didn't produce.
If McAdoo goes for it on 4th and 1, Terrence Williams probably doesn't have a chance to not run out of bounds anyway. The Giants win the game right there. I thought that was a bad call. So that's number one. Number two, I love the fact that you say that's the same old Giants from last year. Because the Giants last year, uncharacteristically in the Eli era, were terrible late in the fourth quarter. I mean, this is a team, Eli Manning throughout his career has been great at fourth quarter comebacks, great at them. And all of a sudden, last year, mainly because of clock management issues, which is why Coughlin's not there anymore. He was getting older. He'd been there for a long time. He's gone now. The Giants blew 4 fourth quarter leads in the last 75 seconds. That's very unlikely to happen again. So when you say the same team from last year they should have won 10 games. They won 6. They don't blow those leads. They had 10-point leads in the fourth quarter. They blew like 5 times. That's not going to happen again. The same team from last year probably wins the division this year, but they're not the same team from last year. First of all, Shepard is there. Randall's not there. A guy who can run routes, and I thought looked pretty good for a guy in his first game, in his first NFL game. Victor Cruz is back, and he caught the touchdown pass. They spent $200 million mostly on the offensive line and the defensive line and the corners, and that D-line is good. They have a really good D-line. I think it's going to get better. Olivier Vernon might be, they may have taken B-plus players and paid them like they're A-plus players, but they are good players, and they got them all over the line. The corners are really good. That starting tandem, tell me a better starting tandem of corners than Janoris Jenkins and Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie as a tandem, and now you got Eli Apple, who's also good. The linebackers and the safeties still an issue, I agree. The offensive line, who they've invested in recent years, was coming along as the game progressed. Flowers is still raw, and they were beaten a couple times, but they are not untalented and offensive line play. It's a matter of reps and playing together and chemistry. They're going to get that as the season progresses. And they're 1-0 in a division without any team you look at and fear. I know Carson Wentz and the Eagles look pretty good week 1. They're playing maybe the worst team in football at the moment without Josh Gordon and everything. Washington, everyone's very amped up about. Let's see what happens tonight. I'm not that impressed by Washington. They're fine. When you really analyze this division, who's better than the Giants?
Well, you can say it like that, and I appreciate your emotions. It's very, very touching. However, I mean, when you could take into consideration the history that we have to lean on for the moment, all you have is yesterday's game against a highly suspect Dallas Cowboys defense and the $200 million that the Giants spent in the offseason ultimately to make your point. That's what it comes down to. We saw impressive play yesterday from their defensive line. We saw them giving the Dallas Cowboys offensive line more trouble than we predicted that would transpire. We get all of that. But all you have is one game against a Dallas Cowboy team being led by a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back who obviously are both very talented, but at the same time still have a lot to prove. That's what you have. What I have is a Redskins team that's the reigning defending NFC East champions. Okay, and I'm looking at Dallas without Tony Romo because we didn't predict that Tony Romo, we suspected he would probably be down, but Dallas is clearly a different team when Tony Romo's in the lineup. For example, Des Bryant wouldn't have had one reception for 8 yards if Tony Romo was the quarterback. I think that's safe to say. I think you would have seen the cornerbacks being challenged with Tony Romo throwing outside the numbers and giving Des Bryant an opportunity to go up there and get the football. But when we look at this Giants team, this is a team that was ranked 30th last year, gave up 6,725 yards. They were dead last against the pass. They were dead last in yardage allowed. They were one of the worst defense in the history of the NFL, for crying out loud. And then you've got a Redskins team that comes off winning the NFC East with a Kirk Cousins who has a franchise tag, with a Garcon and a Deshaun Jackson who can potentially be electrifying, both playing in the last year of their contract. You got this kid Dotson out of TCU who can ball. You got Jordan Reed, who's a stud at your tight end spot. You've got a decent offensive line, and defensively, what was an Achilles heel for you, which was your secondary, has now been buffered exponentially because of the acquisition of Josh Norman to pair with Breland. You still got Kerrigan and the crew there as well. So when I look at it, if you want to go by on paper, let's look at it and call it what it is. The jury is still out about the New York Giants. We'll see what happens. But if you have to pick a favorite, you have to go with the Redskins.
One last thing about Eli and his body language. No Giants fan loves it when he's shrugging his shoulders after throwing a pick or a would-be pick. He also missed a couple of easy passes that were thrown behind someone. Missed Odell in the end zone. Then he found Victor Cruz. He had a couple of moments like that. But it's enough already with everyone his body language. He does it his way, and his way, by the way, is as the most clutch quarterback in the history of the NFL playoffs. No one has ever been more clutch than Eli in the playoffs. So with the money on the line, and look at him in the 2-minute offense in the fourth quarter for the Giants throughout his career, he makes a lot of kind of dumb decisions here and there that you could see that are kind of obviously like, what are you doing? But with the money on the line, he's as good as anyone who ever did it.
He's had his moments. And when you play and start as long as Eli did, because Eli was there in New York when I was there, which people don't even remember the fact that I was there, it was so long ago, you're going to do some good things. To your
like win 2 Super Bowls.
To your question, Denver has better corners. Buffalo has a better pair of corners. Just because you asked me the question.
As a tandem, you think each one is as good?
Chris Harris? Aqib Talib? That's not even.
They're trying to move.
That's not even discussion.
They're trying to move
Darby, Gilmore, not a discussion. But the other thing is what we're saying. You can't give the Giants the throne because of yesterday. Yesterday wasn't this impressive blowout performance. It wasn't Nick Saban and Alabama against USC. We have to wait. I understand your fandom. Will not allow you to come on here and be objective about it.
Didn't you just say before they're the same team as last year?
We need to wait.
But they're not going to blow fourth quarter leads. So that will give them 10 wins
last year. They play one game against against Dak Prescott and a Dallas team who we are not giving an opportunity or a chance to win the NFC East. Nobody spoke about that team when we were in Washington, and nobody's speaking about them today. Let them beat somebody.
I know you never played for the Giants, and you played for Washington, but don't let your
I just told you I played for the Giants. That was the first team. If it wasn't for the Giants, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Ryan sticking with us.
The genius Tom Coughlin told me I wasn't good enough to play safety.
Jimmy G until he's proven himself.
The genius.
The Patriots
don't let your fandom
earn the nickname after beating the Cards in Arizona last night. They're not listening to me. I hope you guys are. You don't want to miss that debate next. Jimmy G taking care of business in Arizona against the 5th-ranked total defense. That was in 2015. 2 rookie guards, 2 backup tackles. Garoppolo went 24 for 33, 264 pass yards in a TD. So, Stephen A., you've given me a hard time when I refer to pretty boy swag Jimmy Garoppolo as Jimmy G. I'm looking for eye contact from you, my friend.
I don't know if that was eye contact or just side eye.
It was a little side eye.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Stephen A., has he earned
that was a whatever look.
the nickname Jimmy G now after that performance last night against Arizona on the road? No Gronk. Give the man some love.
If you want somebody to give him love, talk about folks out there looking at him and thinking he's the second coming of Tom Brady from GQ magazine. He's a good-looking young brother. You understand? You listen to folks out there, they find him attractive. You want to call him Jimmy G based on something like that? Be my guest. I'm thinking about the football player because I don't flow like that. And the bottom line is that when I think about Jimmy Garoppolo, I see one game. One.
Yeah.
That's it.
Against
one
Arizona.
game. It was against the Arizona team.
Everyone thought they would lose that.
It was a win.
Oh.
It was.
Did he have Gronk?
I see one game. He did not have Gronkowski. I get it. I see one game against a team like the Arizona Cardinals who were ill-prepared, and I'd like to take this a step further. It's bad enough I feel the way that I feel, but I'd like to personally give a thanks to my man and my partner in crime, Max Kellerman, because you've made my points for me. You spoke about the greatness of Bill Belichick. So the greatness of Bill Belichick with that lengthy period of time to prepare is what ultimately buffered my position that Jimmy G deserves very little credit for what he did. It was a combination of Bruce Arians. It was a combination of Arizona not showing up. I mean, I don't know what the hell was going on with them yesterday. Don't get me started with Mr. Carson Palmer. Got the nerve to sit up there and call out Tom Brady because of the Deflategate, and you don't even have the decency to go in there and handle your business against Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, you got to be kidding me. So I'm saying all of this to say, I'm not saying he can't play. I'm not saying he didn't do a good job. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any credit. But you were not here when I had to get on Miss Mollywood here. Notice I call her Mollywood because the shine has really hit her. Yeah. She's Mollywood these days. But it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Here's the deal. Mollywood is all about Jimmy G. And I said, you need to show up and produce on a consistent basis before you get a nickname.
I agree with that.
And so that's all I'm trying to say. So they're asking this question because what they want to do is, after 60 minutes of football on a Sunday night in which the opposition, which were the Arizona Cardinals, who were supposed to be Super Bowl contenders, they forgot to show up, they want me to sit here, Ryan, and concede that Jimmy Garoppolo deserves and has earned a nickname,
that's what we
Jimmy
do.
G.
Look.
And I say no, he has not.
It appears
Not
on
yet.
the surface that you got me with the Belichick point.
Well,
I'm
we know-
here saying
we know
Belichick,
this.
you know,
Everything's on the surface with him. Everything's on the surface with him.
Because Belichick
You know?
time to prepare. He's unbeatable. 12-1 in his last 13 openers. All the
Whatever,
Super
man.
Bowls, and he makes the playoffs.
Whatever,
and
man.
They do too well in the playoffs because
Okay.
he has time to prepare. But you can't really separate a quarterback from his coach like that. Now, Matt Castle maybe was Matty C once upon a time. He won 11 games.
I really gotta
Once
help
you
you
leave
out.
Belichick, that's a different story. But guess what? For right now, he's got the head coach. He's fine. And there's a reason he's on the roster, because he can do things like go 24 of 33 with 264 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions, and against an elite defense, 5th ranked last year. They were among the odds-on favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. Compare that to what Mariota did against the Vikings. Now, Mariota, I think, is going to be a franchise quarterback. I think he's worth anything.
Not a great day yesterday.
Well, that's the point.
We'll talk about in a
That's
future
the
days
point.
to come.
When you face an elite defense, it's really tough to do well. And Garoppolo compared favorably to Mariota, who I think is a baller, yesterday against maybe a better defense than Mariota faced. So is that because Belichick puts him in a position to win? Sure. But while you're in that position and you're winning and you're balling, you are Jimmy G. Stephen A.
Please. Handle this, Ryan.
Definitely,
I
I'm
keep
definitely not calling him Jimmy G.
Jimmy G.
If I just call him Jimmy, it's because I don't want to say Garoppolo, and I don't feel like going through all that. Nice day. I thought he had a good game. But can we wait?
Thank you.
Can we press pause?
Thank you.
Why are we getting so excited about week one?
You just told him to make a prediction on the Steelers.
Time out.
That's what we're doing here. Didn't you just say that 5 minutes ago?
Why are you
guys.
interrupting them? What you interrupting them for?
I'm not saying I can't make a point or voice my opinion or give an observation. I'm saying just hold up on crowning him. That's all. We heard a man say it in Arizona. If you want to crown him, crown him. But don't crown this guy the way you're trying to. Here's the thing.
Crowning him? G is a crown?
So here's the thing. Because you're giving him a nickname. You got to
Give him
earn
a
a
nickname. You
gotta
know what
earn a
he's
nickname.
saying. Don't try to
So here's the thing.
your way out of
Here's
this.
the thing. Let's talk about Josh McDaniels. 3 reverses to Julian Edelman, right? The great screen to Hogan, which is a check off of what you see outside. If it's a press coverage, which Brandon Williams, we know, because the Patriots do film study, when they call cover 1, which is man-to-man, Brandon Williams is a press corner because he's only played the position for 2 years, and he doesn't have the skill yet or doesn't understand the game enough to be off. So that's game plan. Right? Julian Edelman, a guy who's a great safety blanket, he gets 7 catches because that's where you go when you're in trouble. LeGarrette Blount runs the ball hard all day. He's able to make good throws. I'm not saying
I'm glad you brought up because no Deion Lewis. It's not just Gronk. It's no Deion Lewis, and they still beat the Cardinals.
It's a system, but
Here's the thing.
Arizona.
Hey,
He didn't
listen,
lose it.
I'm
But
not.
you're the one that brought up the system.
Yeah.
But he's working it.
I'm not saying that he didn't play a good game. See, when you come on here and you pose a question like, can he get a nickname? It's not a question
Already
like,
has it.
it is not a question.
Nonsense.
It's not a
He
question
has
of,
it.
did he play a solid football game? Because he did. And on the last drive, he was able to move the pocket and create some plays that allowed them to move the ball down the field and get a field goal. I think he played well. I also think, like you said, he benefits from being in the position of Bill Belichick being your head coach, also having an offensive coordinator and a team that's able to morph week to week.
Joe Montana benefited from the system, too.
Right. So Jimmy Garoppolo's going to win 4 Super Bowls?
Right. I got it. You know, Max brought up Bill Belichick, and he sung the praises of Bill Belichick and talked about how great Bill Belichick was and how he basically prayed he's a product of Bill Belichick. No problem. We get all that. Bill Belichick, your guy.
Where you going?
Bill Belichick, right? It's an article here.
Belichick.
Our researcher extraordinaire, David Sabino, gave me this stuff. I mean,
Two-timing on me again.
There's an article here, right? So, Belichick It's because the media is like Max and Molly Wood. Then she like Molly Wood. Then the media walked up to Bill Belichick and they were like, "Oh, it was Garoppolo. I mean, Garoppolo, you understand?" And Bill Belichick like, he was good. And there's no gushing, right? Nothing like this one game, right? So they kept harassing.
He was very talkative yesterday.
Hold on. I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
Talkative.
I'm not finished. So Bill Belichick sits up there. So the media sits up there. You do recognize this is going to be a big storyline. You realize that, right? It's going to be a big storyline, Coach Belichick. It's Garoppolo. Bill Belichick, I'm really concerned about the storyline. There's nothing higher on my list than the storyline. In other words, you idiot. This is what they say. This is what he's saying to the reporter. You idiot.
We have to go
You're
to
coming
break.
to me for one
This
game.
is a tough crowd.
That's what he's saying.
You go to Arizona, play that defense without Gronk or Deion Lewis, without one of the greatest tight ends ever, or your starting running back and your third down guy and everything, and you win on the road.
Gonna give you the last word.
When do we care about New England's running back? And here's the other thing I want.
With good numbers.
Go ahead.
Tyrann Mathieu had to play the middle of the field.
Did they have him on the field?
65% of the time.
Did they have him on the
last year.
field?
It's a different
Did they have
team.
their full
No
complement of
Gerard
players?
Powers. It's a different team.
Dude,
You talking
so
about what they
cute.
were ranked
They got a
last
good
year.
defense, yes or no?
Stop reading stats about what people were ranked
They got a good
last year.
defense?
It's not last night.
Do they have a
and
good
that's
defense?
what counts. It's
Do
a
they
new
have a
year.
good defense,
Listen,
yes or
I'm
no?
done.
It is a new year, and you know what's so cute? That you and Stephen A have like your fresh trapper keeper. In your notebook, Stephen A still has a sticker on it. Like it's the.
I'm wearing Molly's glasses right now. These are Molly's
I do
glasses.
have a
I took
big
off.
head.
I put on Molly's glasses.
2016 trapper
You know what I'm
keeper.
saying?
I love
I had
you. You
to
got
see
your
it.
fresh school supplies.
You
You're
know-
all ready to go. When we come back, the Raiders
help you
pull
see
off the
clearly.
shocker of the weekend and go for the win with the 2-point conversion. Are the silver and black underrated? Find out next.
Looks left, throws, caught. Seth Roberts diving for the end zone. Touchdown! Raiders!
They knew that if and when they scored, they were going for two.
High, out of the shotgun. There's a lob for Michael Crabtree. Caught him! He caught him! He caught it! The Raiders have the lead! 35-34!
I let him know early in that drive. I said, when we go score here, we're going to go for two, and we're going to win it right here.
What's it all about? Just win, baby. That's what it's about.
Just win, baby, and they did just that. The Raiders bet on themselves in the Superdome with a gutsy call, and it paid off. Stephen A. Smith, how you feeling about Oakland now?
We shall see. Everybody's getting excited about the silver and black. I'm excited about their colors. I'm excited about their mystique. I'm excited about the fact that Jack Del Rio was gutsy enough to call that 2-point conversion instead of looking to go to overtime by making the extra point because of the way Drew Brees was passing. 424 yards, 4 touchdowns, 14th time in his career he's passed for over 400 yards in a game, tying the great Peyton Manning on an all-time list. Drew Brees, needless to say, Max, validated why he deserved the $60 million in guarantee that I tried to tell you last week he deserved, all right? Because as you, I'm sure, witnessed yesterday, you see what I mean when I say that's all they got? You see what I mean when I say that he is the New Orleans Saints, that it really, really doesn't matter? We damn near forgotten that Sean Payton is the head coach because there's really nobody else that matters on the New Orleans Saints when Drew Brees is not there. I'm just saying.
You want to mischaracterize what I said to whack at a straw man? Is that what you want to do?
I'm trying to tell you, okay, that when you say Drew Brees, that's the New Orleans Saints. When you say the New Orleans Saints, that's Drew Brees. One without the other doesn't mesh because the New Orleans Saints are the eights without Brees. Now, hold on, because let me just get to my bigger point about the Raiders. The Raiders got Carr, who's a damn good quarterback. Amari Cooper is a stud. What did he have yesterday? I think he has 137 yards, 6 receptions. The brother was on another level. This kid, Richard, 75-yard touchdown run open the game. I mean, it's very, very impressive. But the Raiders defense is still suspect. That 98-yard hookup between Brees and Cooks is something that they need to revisit. The bottom line is that the reason why I say the jury is still out, because the New Orleans Saints are horrible defensively. They're just horrible. And because your defense is horrible, because they are an abomination, because they repeatedly showcase how depressing they look for fans out there watching, hoping for a defense, it is hard for me to get caught up on what I saw from the Raiders offensively. That's my issue.
Look,
so we shall see.
Look, First of all, with Drew Brees, then I'm going to get to my real point, just to answer this outrageous, outlandish attack.
Whatever.
I know he is the man now. I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing length of deal, and in fact, I said the Saints got it right. 2 years, because he'll be 38 this year, or at the end of this, during the playoffs this year, which I don't think they'll be a part of. He'll be 40 by the time the deal is, the guaranteed money's over, and no quarterback ever has been elite past about 40 and a half. No one's been elite at 41, so they were smart to give him the contract they did. Now, as Wally Shawn said in The Princess Bride, there are...
Princess
Yes,
Bride.
that's right, that's right.
That's what you quote on
That's
first.
right.
The Princess...
That's right.
First it was Shakespeare, that's the Princess
Well, I'm
Bride.
paraphrasing.
Okay.
Classic blunders.
Awesome.
Never get involved in a land war in Asia, but also... never not take Drew Brees in daily fantasy if he's playing at home. I made a classic blunder yesterday, and I paid for it. If Drew Brees is playing at home, take him, because daily fantasy, he's going to kill it for you. Now, I want to get to my real point here.
I'm glad.
Del Rio. This is why Raiders fans should be happy. Jack Del Rio made the wrong call, and it came out right yesterday. That's the wrong call. I know you're on the road. I know Brees is throwing it and everything. But the fact is, they score the extra. They go for 2. They convert. And then because of a celebration, it's a ridiculous rule, but okay, they give up 15 yards. And that very well would have been in fact, it would have been the difference in the game, put him in field goal range to actually make the field goal, had it not been for Janikowski's leg. I mean, that guy, talk about a different level. It's unbelievable. Now, maybe Del Rio realizes that, so he knows he can get bailed out by Janikowski. I believe it was the wrong decision at that moment, but it showed me something about Jack Del Rio. I'm here criticizing often NFL coaches about being cowards, essentially. Right. They play by the book. They play for self-preservation. They don't want to be second-guessed, and so they don't go for it on 4th and 1, and they don't really look to put the dagger, to really the killer instinct. They're always looking, oh, maybe we'll get it to overtime. Let's punt. Let's not go for it. Jack Del Rio showed me something. Whether or not it was right,
wait a minute,
the fact is he will go for it.
Wait a minute.
He'll be aggressive.
Wait a minute. If he showed you something, then it ain't wrong.
Well, no,
it ain't wrong.
If
he showed you something and he won because of it, it ain't wrong. That's double dipping, Max
Kellerman.
Kellerman.
Right. I'll triple dip.
That's double dip. You want triple dip.
I will
You want some ice cream too? You want some ice cream too?
It worked out.
Sprinkles and
it was the wrong decision, but it worked out, and it showed me. And it showed me. That's double dip. Here comes the triple dip.
Go ahead.
And it showed me that he has the kind of aggressive nature, not worrying about getting second guessed, that you need in the long run.
You talked over me all morning. You guys were doing so good. I haven't get to do one bump.
I'm sorry. It's his fault.
You.
I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. He's wrong.
It's another huge week of guests here on First Take. Tomorrow we have Bengals All-Pro wide receiver A.J. Green. Then on Friday, the hilarious Terry Crews will join us at the desk. So tune in all week here on First Take. The Buffalo Bills got off to a rough start to the 2016 season, 160 yards of total offense in the 13-7 loss to the Ravens. With the loss, Rex Ryan drops to 8-9 as Bills head coach. Max?
Yes.
Should be on the hot seat?
To paraphrase Old Dirty, that seat be burning hot. It should be really hot. Look, his players are missing team buses and tweeting about it now. While you lose a game and you haven't done anything recently but make promises with your mouth that your team can't cash, and it's your brother in charge of the defense, yeah, of course. And it's defensive players who missed the bus. Yes, he's on the hot seat.
Nepotism and play too player friendly and what have you. And you've missed the playoffs 5 straight years as a head coach. Rex Ryan is proving to be a defensive coordinator who's got a side job as a glorified head coach. He has no business being a head coach the way this is going right now. He's got to get it together.
As a player's coach, and the players are pulling this now, and you're losing. Not good.
Bye, everybody. Enjoy the games tonight. Doubleheader on ESPN Monday Night Football. We'll break it all down. Mañana.